Okay, so one of the questions that came up from one of our Attention Collective members is, what's it like working together? And what are some strategies for working at home or anywhere, I guess, with your life partner?
Yeah.
I feel like you might have some things to say about that.
I think you'd have a lot
We
to
both
say
have
about
some
that.
things to say about that.
Break the twitch.
We could say we are husband and wife, life partners, and business partners. Like, give people context about if you want to see more. So, like, if you want to see more of this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and okay, Rocky's leaving me. And this is a special Break the Twitch series. We're gonna call it Couch Conversations with Amy and Anthony. That's perfect. Couch Conversations with Amy and Anthony. And we're going to be covering Break the Twitch topics like minimizing distractions, building good habits, and of course, learning to love your attention. Before we get too far into it here, I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online community for creative, curious people. There are courses across every topic you can possibly imagine, many of which are taught by some of my fellow YouTubers and other teachers and professionals all across the board. I've really been enjoying some of these Skillshare courses, and I highly recommend you take a look. For example, there's this course on DSLR photography that you could take to learn all about that camera that you purchased a while ago, but maybe you don't know all of the functions or how to get the best possible images out of it. One of the best parts about Skillshare is that on the annual plan, when you break it down, it comes down to less than $10 per month. So it's definitely worth checking out. It's a great resource. In fact, the first 1,000 people that click the link in the description of this video will get a free trial to premium Skillshare membership. So definitely check it out. Click the link, and thanks again to Skillshare for supporting Break the Twitch, my work here, and hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Let's dig in a little bit to the history of us working together. Really, the first kind of official time was back in the Minneapolis house. Mm-hmm. We had the smaller office. It was about as big as this room, actually. And our desks were right next to each other. Mm-hmm. That was the starting point a couple years ago when we were starting to do this. And that was interesting.
Yeah, and part of it was, I think, because of the setup. Like, we wanted our desks to be in a place where we could have all the equipment together and to have it be soundproofed, because our house in Minneapolis was very echoey. Mm-hmm. We had office desks that were matching and everything, and so it made sense that they would all go in one place. I mean, in my eyes, it was kind of just to like consolidate and have a dedicated space without having two separate spaces.
Yeah, like an office, yeah.
The idea was good.
In theory,
yes.
in theory, the idea was good. Yes, we had the sound panels up in that office, and there's funny things that happen. I mean, anytime you're sharing a space and just trying to work, we don't always have like the same focus flow of like how long we're each going, or like what we're working on, if it's like a quiet thing or if it's there were challenges that arose, and so we learned a lot from that experience.
There were times where I'd be like, Anthony, you're so noisy.
Yeah, like loud typing or just like moving around.
No,
yeah.
You would talk.
Oh,
you
really?
would talk.
Okay, so to be fair, that's one of the primary issues, right? So one of the big issues of working at home together is constantly interrupting each other. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're right next to each other, and especially when you can look over at the other person's screen and be like, they're not doing anything important right now, like, it's fine. And you just kind of like, the temptation, right? The temptation to just see something, and you want to tell stuff, like, oh, did you see this email came in or whatever? Mm-hmm. It's just so natural and instinctive and easy to interrupt your partner when you're right there. So that was like the first evolution, and there were definite challenges. I think operating in a small space, you kind of just have to deal with some of those things. Yeah. But that was the first set of challenges that we experienced. That evolved a bit when we moved to Arizona, and our office together was facing each other.
Across from each other. So our screens were back to back.
Right. So we're still in the same room, and had our desks, so at least we couldn't see each other.
We couldn't see each other. We also couldn't see what each other were working on. So it was a slight improvement. Yeah. But the temptation to just interrupt your partner or be like, hey, what about this? Or like, hey, have you heard about this? Or hey, have you started working on this? Was just still too great.
Yeah, it was strong. And even though you couldn't see each other, it's like then it's almost worse because in a lot of ways, like if I would have headphones on and I'd be trying to like get into focus, like you'd want to say something, and then it's like you hear, and I would do this to you too. I'm just, the example coming my way is like you hear something and you know that they're saying something to you, like, but you didn't hear what they said. And so then you have to be like, huh? And then it's like, oh, I'm thirsty. I mean, I don't know. That was the first, I am literally thirsty right now. So that's why I thought of that. But
It would be just some not that important comment that I was just simply saying, or you were simply saying, and the person would be like, okay, I was really focused. And then I'm trying to focus right now. And then you get back to work. But then it does throw you off for a little bit. It takes a little while to get back into the flow that you may have been in.
totally. And that's what I'm finding for me personally. And I know for you too, is like huge for productivity is the idea of just like batching and optimizing those moments when you do get into a flow, when you get locked in. And like for me, if I have the same song playing over and over without words and I'm writing and at like 15, 20 minutes into that, I'll just go like really deep. And anything that pulls me out literally just is going to take a while to get back into it. And I know it's similar for you. Like you want to just be able to, you're doing a lot like of stuff with organizational type things. And so if you get interrupted halfway through it, it totally disrupts that stuff. And so one of the challenges and one of the improvements that we've made, even now in the third evolution of being in separate spaces, which we'll, I'm sure, talk about here in a minute, one of the evolutions that we made is like learning to not like bring up as many little things throughout the day and just try to consolidate them. It's still hard because you're passing each other in the kitchen and you're like, oh, hey, did you get the thing? So really trying to create more boundaries around a normal environment is, I think, really, really important to doing it successfully.
Like we do need certain periods of time where we need to connect on things and share updates and share our thoughts, like so that we can both move forward, because a lot of the things that we're doing are so intertwined with each other. And then often, I mean, we do have our separate roles. Like you are more focused on the film equipment and the filming aspect of it,
Writing.
the writing part of it. Although I'm getting a little bit more into the content, and have been. I'm more of the organizational part. I do a lot of the back-end business infrastructure. And so while we do have our separate roles, there are some things where we can't just go forward without the input and feedback from the other person. And so we're still working out the frequency and the format that would work best, because some days, like it's hard to find the time to meet because things sometimes take longer than you think they will. And oftentimes I'll have a meeting during a certain time and you'll have a meeting at another time, and so that it doesn't really quite sync up. And then the last thing we want to do when it gets a little later at night, when there aren't no meetings or things going on, is to have that meeting. And so it's a little tough still.
It's definitely a default to want to mention things as we sit down for dinner, and creating that separation has been a lot of the very positive and important work that we're just continually doing, because I really think that's an adjustment, especially when you're running a business and doing all the different kinds of things we're doing together. All the lines, I mean, I think you'd agree that like all the lines very much become blurred, and the more that we separate it, the better things tend to be and go. It's just, it can be really hard to do, because when you're doing something you're passionate about and you're really, wanting to create change with, or build like this, it can be consuming.
Yeah, one other thing that I've become more conscious about is knowing what tasks are best for each person.
That's huge.
Yeah. And so we've naturally kind of done that with splitting out roles, like, okay, you're more of this and then I'm more of this. And so it kind of, and the roles were kind of separated based on what things we were naturally good at or things that we were interested in. And for me, I've kind of realized that for the tasks that are incredibly detailed and like whatnot, like it's maybe best that I take those on and that I find a way to systemize it and then delegate it out. And so I think that that's one of the ways in which we've kind of noticed these things that just feel heavy for one person. You know, like there are ways that either the other person can take it on or that you can find some way to delegate it out in a way that makes sense for your business.
That's another thing too, is just mentality wise, if we step into the business side of things or the realm of this, it's like, it's easy to feel like you have to do everything yourselves. And, you know, that's a whole other.
I was very much guilty of that up until very recently.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, we both were in a sense of just trying to take on too much. If we go back to like our experience at the end of 2019, when we had completely burned out trying to do the podcast, run the production company. You know, we were on planes more than once a month. Like it was a very intense thing, and we didn't have help, and it just got to be too much. And so it's easy to lose track of those things. I think the big thing in terms of the relationship that I've learned and like we've learned is that as much as like you would do this normally, right? Like you might just go to work and then come home, and then you have like these very clearly defined roles, and you have to figure out like who does what best. And I think what's interesting, I was just reading a study about how partners tend to not share tasks equally, but each partner chooses tasks that they prefer doing, and then they split them that way. And like you tend to be more into cooking, and I don't mind, especially as I've gotten more into it, like I don't mind cleaning and taking care of like that sort of stuff. And so what's funny about that is because we also run a business together, we have just expanded like the household responsibilities of what a normal couple would be experiencing and doing, but just expanded it to work too. To your point of like, you know, us trying to find the things that we each are better at or we're each able to do more effectively.
Yeah.
And then optimizing for that instead of just doing that with home life and trying to find a good balance with that at home. You're then just adding in a business and having to work to figure that out. And it takes time to figure out, especially when you're new and when you're evolving. I feel like we're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Even recently, like we've been giving each other even more space and more focus time and like looking more carefully. You know, when I go out and I see you working and I'm going to the kitchen or something, I want to talk to you, but like I try to, you know, to
Yeah, likewise.
just let
like,
it go.
looking in the office and then being like, oh, okay, he's working right now. He's really focused. And I think we've just been better about communicating with each other when we're not getting what we need. And that's been really helpful. So this goes for both life and business, you know, so talking about the household stuff. Hey, I actually could really use some help with this. Instead of, you know, more passive aggressive comments like, so are you gonna go do this?
Like what's going on with this thing or like whatever.
Or yeah. So I think learning more caring and compassionate ways of understanding our own feelings and emotions and then considering the other person's feelings and emotions has been super helpful on all fronts.
Two things I would say with that. One is that it's very easy, especially with the pandemic and people moving to work from home, when that hasn't been the case, right? And that's a new thing. You're not used to being around each other all the time. And it's actually, I would say, we've gotten very used to being together so often, but most of our relationship was not that way. We had office jobs, we were going off and doing things, we had separate friends and we had together friends and we had our own time. And so if you think about the change in purely the amount of time that you're together, you know, even best friends like, you know, need space. And it's funny because I think for both of us, there can be a bit of a guilt in feeling like, oh, we need space, or like I need to just like have some time to myself, because it's your partner, you know, like you don't want to feel that way, but I think it's perfectly healthy and human for you to like go read, or like go take some time, or like me to just like hang out and watch something, or go take a walk or whatever. It's just so different from what we're used to, especially as we're adjusting to this, that it's important to remember for anyone out there to like adjusting to this environment, like take time. It's a totally different thing. And as much as you love the person that you're with, like you're still a human, and you still need to, you know, have space to process and time to think about the things you want to think about and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the big ones, that I would say that is not a conscious adjustment, because it's almost like because we're working together now, you have to be much more intentional about the non-working time where you're sitting down and doing something together. That's something we've constantly been working on, just trying to set aside, like, this isn't work time. We're not going to talk about work stuff. We're going to just like have one-on-one time where we're not distracted or just trying to blow off steam.
It's really hard because a lot of times we'll start talking about something and then it'll be like, oh, but we should do this too. And like, or this would be a really great idea for this. And so it's really hard, to your point. And it's something that, yes, I think it's going to be a continuous thing that we need to work on, or just like keep working on.
Just like placing the bookends in the different areas and playing, like almost like playing the role of the moment when you're in it. Like, okay, we are husband and wife. All right, we are co-business owners. Okay, we are, you know, I don't know, whatever else, you know, it is there, but I'm sure there's multiple, but we are dog parents, you know, like we're whatever, like identifying like, where am I right now? What role am I playing right now in this moment? And although I want to bring up something, you know, it's I'm gonna not. And that brings up the second point that I would say about this is, if you have frustrations, you know, in your relationship as it is, so things that are like not, you know, you have like some passive, like you know, like frustration, or like things that kind of come out. If you start a business together, it will bring everything front and center.
Yes.
And make it louder.
Yep.
Like it will be, which I actually think is a good thing in a lot of ways, because that getting into business together and like working out, oh my gosh, like she has this tendency, oh, I have this tendency, and he has this tendency, like working those things out is the things largely that were already there. And so it just brings them to light. It makes them more apparent, and it's harder, but then you like, okay, now we can work through these things. We can self-develop into the relationship, make it stronger, right? Like
brings it into awareness so that you can work together to resolve and to find compromise and better solutions maybe than what you were already doing.
So expect that, is what I would say to any couples out there that are thinking about starting a business together. Expect that the things that you're frustrated about now, or the things that you might have small issues with, those are going to boil up to the surface when you're dealing with money and business and timelines and deadlines and all this stuff. And so be ready for that to come up, and be in a place where that is a good thing versus a thing that's going to deteriorate.
Yeah.
Because it has the potential to do both.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And I think that having a support system that's not your partner is really important too. So whether it's like friends around you, family members, or maybe a therapist, you know, or someone else, you know, who you look up to, who can be some sort of mentor, whoever those people are, I think that it's important to have that, you know, because if you think about it, if your best friend is your partner, who is the person that you're starting this business with, this new venture with, I mean, there's going to be frustrations that come up. And if your main support person is that other person, you're going to be in a hard place. And it's going to be extra frustrating. You're going to feel kind of alone in this. And so that's not good. And being aware of that up front, and then finding those places either in a community of people, you can join an online community, to do that as well. Finding those pockets where you can have those avenues to kind of either vent or to help resolve things is helpful.
Absolutely. Having that support system is critical, because if you're home all day working, even together or just on separate things, but in the same space, and then you're there in the evenings, like, it's easy to just always pour out frustration or always just kind of vent, and that energy, right, is okay sometimes when your partner's there to absorb some of that and like support you through it, whichever way it's going. But like, it can't all go to that one person. It can't all do, because especially if you're working on the same project and you're venting your frustrations, you're basically negatively affirming like these things when you're trying to be optimistic, and right, like it goes both ways. And so that's something you need to be careful of. And so that's why it's really, really important to have that external support, so that you can be conscious of not overbearing your partner with like your own frustrations, that just try to keep things upbeat and light and tackle the challenges together. So there's lots to consider with this stuff.
Yeah, and you've brought up a really good point in kind of how we can't help but feed off of the energy of people around us. And so if you are really frustrated with your partner, whether it's in business or in life, that's going to come across if you're also venting to that partner about those things, or feeling the need to express yourselves, and your only avenue is that other person. And so somewhat on that topic is also how, because we feed off of each other's energies, it doesn't mean that we're always at the same wavelength either. And so one thing that I've really noticed is that when I'm in go, go, go work mode, you're not necessarily going to be in that same mode. Maybe you're feeling tired, and so then you're going to want to do something else that's more low effort, and vice versa, right? And so I think being aware that even though you're feeling great and you're feeling like you can really go at something, doesn't mean that other person is in that mode.
Different working styles, different working times, like, yeah, for sure.
When we first started working with each other, I noticed a huge difference in our work styles and the times in where we would best work. And so it was worse. It was the worst when we were in the Minneapolis office, where we could see what the other person was doing on the screen. So I'd like look over, and then you'd be on Reddit or something. Or like you'd look over and I'd be on Facebook or something like that.
And it feels like, even though like work is happening, right, and it's just happening in different ways, our brains work in very different ways, and we process information differently, and then it comes out in different ways. Like, it's still, if you're working and the other person is not, you have to like learn to get over this thing. And it almost extends to like if I stop and I'm like trying to wind down for the evening, or like you're trying to wind down and I'm still working, or I pass your desk and I like see that you're still working, I kind of feel like a sense of weird like guilt, like I shouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like I shouldn't be stopping yet, or like, but it's like 11 p.m. and it all depends on just like trying to just understand that like people are going to do what they're going to do, and also encouraging each other to like remember to take breaks, and that you've done enough and there will be enough tomorrow, because it's so easy to just go until late at night instead of doing other things.
We're lucky in the sense that both of us tend to be night owls.
Yeah.
And not morning people. And so for us, it's a little better in that we do have moments where actually 10 p.m. to midnight are great working
hours, totally.
for us. And I know that that's not the case for some people. Some people would listen to that and go, oh my God, I'm like asleep. I'm already in bed.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's what works for you, but around 10 p.m. to midnight is often when I have my most focused times. And that's just kind of how my energy works.
Yep.
And I think part of not only accepting that the other person, your partner, has a different energy and work style, it's also respecting and honoring your own differences too from maybe what everyone else is doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being willing to experiment with the different times and like different things of, taking breaks at different times, like Pomodoro, or just exploring and not trapping yourself. That's the whole kind of point of building a business like this, I think, is really because you have a sense or a belief that you can do it in a way that is more effective than what you were forced to, like at a company or by a boss who said, you need to be sitting here, you need to work for 4 hours from 9 to 1, and then from 2 to 6, and then you go home, and that's where this is how this works. And so that's one of the biggest opportunities, I think, with building a business, with being an entrepreneur, is you get to choose fully, but then it's on you, it's on you and your partner to like actually bring the,
Yeah, it's both great because of the flexibility, and it can also be a bad thing because of the flexibility. And so it helps to be incredibly intentional about the things that would work best for you, but then that you're not neglecting the things that would ground you and keeping to as regular of a schedule for eating, for exercising, and for sleep.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, all of those things matter, but the biggest thing I think is, in terms of just like trying to treat, for advice for people that are, wanting to work together, working in the same space. For me, my one thing would be like if there's one action item, give each other more space throughout the day so that you're not just like every 30 minutes walking by, be like, how's it going? Or like, or like me coming, it's like just swinging by your desk and be like, oh, hey, are you ready to eat lunch or whatever, right? It's just really like trying to create a more self-paced, autonomous environment, and then consolidating the things that you need to ask for. And this is my, my work, definitely. Like I need to, consolidate the things that I'm asking for instead of just bringing it up because I'm thinking about it at that moment while we're standing there eating lunch. So that's probably for me what I would say. What's like the one like big takeaway if someone was going to take away something from this and take an action item?
I think my big thing is realizing that other people have different work styles and are in different modes than you at different times of the day. Because I'm of the, like, I like to be working when other people are working. Like, it helps motivate me.
I remember you saying that a long time ago, actually.
Yes, it's kind of like why before the pandemic, I liked going to these gym classes, or like they would hold these classes, these group classes at the gym. And I would like to go there because then I would be working out with all these people, and then working out with everyone would motivate me to work out and work out harder. And I think the same thing kind of applies to work as well. But I think there were parts of it that weren't as healthy. And so it's actually been a growing experience for me to know that I can work and work well on my own. And it's not that I had trouble working well on my own, it's just an extra motivator. But knowing that I can get to that extra motivated point on my own has been a healthy place for me to be.
Well, that's great advice. Well, I hope this has been helpful for people who may be going into an experience working on your own. And if you'd like to see more of these videos, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment about what you'd like us to share and talk about, and we'll do that.